I arrived for Christmas, only for Mom to declare, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." Stunned, I left. Minutes later, my brother called. "Don't be upset, but we couldn't let you in." I said, "Understood." He forgot to hang up. He still thinks helping with rent means he's automatically included. I canceled their rent, blocked their cards. By morning, 61 missed calls. No rent, no home. The snow fell softly, a gentle curtain descending upon the world, as Allison Reed, 32 years old, stood on the porch of her childhood home. In her arms, a homemade apple pie, still warm, nestled beside carefully wrapped gifts. She had traversed 3 states, driven by the fervent hope of surprising her family for Christmas. Her heart, a drum of anticipation, pounded against her ribs as her mother, Margaret, finally opened the door. But the welcoming embrace Allison yearned for never came. Instead, her mother's eyes turned to ice. "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house," Margaret said, her voice firm, before the door swung shut, leaving Allison alone in the swirling flakes. Echoes of a fractured past growing up in their unassuming 2-story house in small-town Ohio had its moments of warmth, though it was far from a perfect tableau. Her parents' divorce when Allison was 15 shattered their domestic peace, leaving Margaret to raise Allison and her younger brother, Tyler, alone. Their father had moved to Florida with a new girlfriend, his presence dwindling over the years from birthday cards with a crisp $20 bill to mere Facebook messages. Margaret, a nurse administrator, toiled through extra shifts at the local hospital, her exhaustion etched onto her face as she'd collapse onto the sofa each evening, still in her scrubs. Tyler, for years Allison's junior, was the charmer, his dimpled smile and silver tongue often talking him out of scrapes. Allison, by contrast, embraced the role of the responsible one, preparing dinner when her mother worked late, helping Tyler with homework, and taking on part-time jobs throughout high school to contribute to the household. Their family unit, though fractured, had endured by leaning on each other. After college, Allison remained in Cincinnati for a few years, working at a marketing firm just 30 minutes from her mother's house. Sunday dinners became their cherished tradition. Allison would bring groceries, cook for everyone, and they'd settle in for movies afterward. These were comfortable times, yet Allison often felt the quiet burden of being the emotional anchor for both her mother and Tyler. The slow unraveling 5 years ago, an irresistible opportunity arose. A major marketing agency in Chicago offered Allison a position with nearly double her salary and significant advancement potential. The decision to move was difficult, but at 27, Allison knew she needed to forge her own path. Her mother feigned support, though her lips tightened at the news. Tyler, then 23 and still living at home while attending community college, seemed genuinely happy. "Go show them what the Reeds are made of," he'd said, hugging her tightly on moving day. What began as occasional financial assistance soon morphed into a steady stream of aid. 3 months after her move, Margaret called about the furnace failing in the dead of winter. The $4,000 repair bill was beyond their means. Allison transferred the money immediately. 2 months later, Tyler needed a reliable car for his new job, another $5,000 from Allison's savings. By the end of her first year in Chicago, Allison had set up automatic monthly transfers to both their accounts, $800 to her mother for mortgage assistance, and $500 to Tyler to help him get on his feet. She never questioned the ongoing need, assuming they would inform her when their financial situation improved. During her rare visits, Allison noticed new furniture in the living room, her mother's updated kitchen appliances, and Tyler's ever-growing collection of gaming equipment. They explained these as bargain finds, or necessary investments. Meanwhile, their emotional connection grew increasingly strained. Her attempts to connect often met the silence of a voicemail box, and family updates came primarily through social media rather than direct conversations. When they did speak, the discussions revolved around their lives, their problems, with little interest in Allison's promotion or the challenges of building a life alone in a new city. Holidays became burden duties. 2 Thanksgivings ago, Allison spent 8 hours cooking while her mother and Tyler watched football, only to complain the turkey was too dry. Last Christmas, a debilitating illness prevented her visit. Their disappointment seemed more about the gifts she wouldn't be bringing than missing her company. Still, she sent packages and transferred extra money for a special holiday dinner. The journey to a closed door this year, Allison resolved, would be different. She declined a company retreat to Jamaica, arranged coverage for her accounts, and spent weeks selecting perfect presents. For her mother, a cashmere sweater in her favorite shade of blue and a spa package at a resort Margaret had always wanted to visit. For Tyler, the limited edition gaming console he'd been hinting about, and concert tickets for his favorite band's reunion tour. Allison even practiced Grandma Reed's apple pie recipe until she could recreate it perfectly from memory. Their phone conversations leading up to the holiday were brief. Margaret mentioned a small gathering, but offered no details when Allison inquired about attendees. Tyler texted, rather than called, asking if Allison could chip in extra for holiday expenses. She transferred an additional $1,000, assuming it would contribute to a special celebration for everyone. Throughout the autumn, a persistent feeling of disconnection gnawed at Allison. Despite the physical distance, she felt increasingly estranged. The monthly financial support, to her, was not an obligation but an expression of love, a way to remain connected despite the miles. Yet, with each interaction, she sensed an invisible barrier rising, as if her decision to pursue her career had somehow betrayed them. Still, nothing prepared her for what awaited her on their doorstep that Christmas Eve, arms laden with gifts, heart brimming with hope for reconciliation. The Chicago skyline vanished in her rearview mirror as Allison headed east, Christmas music playing softly on the radio. Her apartment had felt particularly empty that morning, the decorated tree standing alone with only a few packages for neighbors. The real presents, meticulously wrapped in silver and blue, were carefully packed in her trunk. Her boss, Lisa, had raised an eyebrow when Allison requested the full week off. "The Thornton account presentation is on the 28th, Lisa reminded her. "Are you sure you can't do Christmas Day with family and be back for prep?" "I haven't had a real Christmas with them in years," Allison explained. "I need this time." What she didn't articulate was her desperate desire to mend the frayed threads of their connection. Lisa reluctantly approved, making Allison promise to check emails remotely. The usual 8-hour drive stretched to nearly 12 as snowstorms across Indiana forced traffic to a crawl. Allison called her mother around noon to update her on the delay. "We're having dinner at 6, Margaret said, her voice oddly flat. "Don't worry about rushing. We can save you a plate. I'll try to make it in time," Allison promised. "I've got presents for everyone." A pause. "Everyone?" "Yes, for you and Tyler, and I can wrap something for anyone else who's coming," Allison offered, trying to sound casual while fishing for information about the small gathering. "That won't be necessary," Margaret replied quickly. "Drive safely. The roads are probably bad." She hung up before Allison could respond. That conversation replayed in Allison's mind as she inched along the interstate. Perhaps her mother was just busy with preparations, or the connection was poor. Still, Margaret's tone bothered her, lacking the warmth a mother should express when her daughter braves snowstorms to see her. At a rest stop in western Ohio, Allison called Tyler, who answered on the fourth ring, sounding slightly out of breath. "Hey sis, what's up?" Background noise nearly drowned out his voice. "Just checking in. I'm about 3 hours away now. The roads are clearing up." Cool. "Listen, I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you back?" He never did. Just outside Columbus, Allison stopped at a gourmet market to buy ingredients for the apple pie. The store bustled with last-minute shoppers, everyone clutching lists and moving with purpose. She selected the finest Granny Smith apples, premium cinnamon, and splurged on a hand-crafted pie dish she thought her mother might like to keep. Afterward, an elderly woman in line behind her smiled at her purchases. "Someone's getting a special homemade treat," she observed. "My family," Allison explained, suddenly tearful. "I haven't been home for Christmas in a while." The woman patted her arm. "Nothing like coming home for the holidays, dear. The final stretch of highway gave way to familiar exits, then town roads that hadn't changed since her childhood. The movie theater where she had her first date, the ice cream shop where they celebrated Tyler's Little League victories, the park where her mother used to take them sledding after heavy snows. Each landmark triggered memories of simpler times when their family bond seemed unbreakable. Main Street was decorated with twinkling lights and evergreen garlands, the town square dominated by a massive Christmas tree. Allison drove slowly past her old high school, noticing new construction had replaced the athletic fields. Life had continued here without her, the town evolving just as she had in Chicago. Turning onto Maple Avenue, Allison felt butterflies in her stomach. Their modest two-story colonial came into view, now adorned with tasteful white lights along the roofline and wrapped around the porch columns. She never remembered their decorations being so elegant during her childhood. The driveway was full of unfamiliar vehicles, a red SUV, a sleek black sedan, and what looked like a brand-new luxury sports car alongside her mother's familiar blue Honda. Quite a gathering for Christmas Eve, Allison thought, friends of Mom's from the hospital perhaps, or Tyler's college buddies. She parked along the curb, checking her appearance in the rearview mirror. The 12-hour drive had left her looking tired, but a quick application of lipstick and a brush through her hair helped. She wanted to look successful, happy, worth being proud of. Balancing the pie in one hand and a tote bag of gifts in the other, Allison navigated the freshly shoveled walkway. Christmas music and laughter spilled from inside, along with the mouth-watering aroma of roasting turkey. Through the front window, she glimpsed the living room Christmas tree, much larger and more elaborately decorated than in years past. The sight of stockings hanging from the mantel made her wonder if one bore her name. Snow crunched beneath her boots as she climbed the porch steps. Taking a deep breath to calm her nerves, she shifted the packages in her arms and pressed the doorbell. The music inside dipped in volume. Footsteps approached. Allison plastered on her brightest smile as the door swung open. The door slammed shut. Margaret stood in the doorway, a glass of red wine in hand. Her hair had been recently colored and styled, her makeup expertly applied. She wore an elegant black dress Allison had never seen before, with a sparkling necklace that caught the light. For a split second, joy flashed across her face before being replaced by something entirely unexpected, alarm. Her eyes widened as she took in Allison's snow-covered boots, the steaming pie in her hands, and the bag of gifts. Behind her, Allison caught glimpses of people moving about. The dining room table was set with what appeared to be fine china and crystal glasses. This wasn't a small gathering, this was a full-scale holiday dinner party. Margaret's fingers tightened around her wine glass as she positioned herself to block Allison's view of the interior. The warm, familiar greeting Allison had anticipated never came. Instead, Margaret uttered the words that would crush her reality. "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." Her voice carried just enough volume for anyone nearby to hear. Allison blinked, certain she'd misheard. "Mom, it's me, Allison." Her mother's expression remained fixed, eyes darting nervously over her shoulder before returning to Allison. "I'm afraid you must be confused," she continued with a charade. "There's no Allison here." The pie felt suddenly heavy in Allison's hands. A cold gust of wind sent snowflakes swirling around them on the porch, some landing on the steaming pastry. "Mom, what are you talking about? I drove all day to get here. We talked on the phone earlier." Allison's voice trembled as confusion gave way to the first tendrils of hurt. Margaret leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. "This isn't a good time, Allison. You should have called to confirm." "I did call. You knew I was coming." The pitch of Allison's voice rose with incredulity. Behind her, a man's voice called out, "Margaret, who's at the door? We're ready for the toast." Margaret glanced back into the house before facing Allison again, her expression hardening. "Like I said, you have the wrong house. Merry Christmas." She began closing the door. "Wait." Allison wedged her boot in the narrowing gap. "At least let me give you these gifts. I drove across 3 states. The door paused. For a fleeting moment, Allison thought her mother might relent, might invite her in from the cold to join whatever celebration was happening inside her childhood home. Instead, Margaret whispered, "Not now, Allison. Please just go." A different voice approached from inside, and suddenly Tyler appeared behind their mother. He wore a button-down shirt and tie, looking more polished than Allison had ever seen him. His eyes met hers, widening in recognition and then unmistakably panic. "It's nothing," Margaret told him, still maintaining her bizarre pretense. "Just someone who got the wrong address." Tyler stared at Allison, a visible struggle played across his features. For a moment, Allison thought he might contradict their mother, might welcome his sister who had faithfully sent him $500 every month for years. Instead, he placed a hand on Margaret's shoulder. "Everything okay out here?" he asked, pointedly avoiding addressing Allison directly. "Fine," Margaret replied. "I was just explaining the situation." From the dining room came sounds of laughter and clinking glasses. A woman's voice called out, "Tyler, your girlfriend is telling that hilarious story about your trip to Aspen." Girlfriend? Aspen? With what money had her chronically unemployed brother taken a ski vacation? "I'll be right there," Tyler called back, still not acknowledging Allison. To his mother, he murmured, "We should get back to our guests." "Our guests, not including me." Margaret nodded and faced Allison again. All pretense of not recognizing her apparently abandoned now that Tyler had joined her. "You need to leave, Allison. This is embarrassing for everyone." "Embarrassing?" Allison repeated, the word hitting like a physical blow. "I'm family. How is that embarrassing? We have important people here tonight," Margaret hissed. "Tyler's girlfriend's parents, my new friends from the country club." "Country club? On a nurse administrator's salary?" "We can talk tomorrow," Margaret continued. "This isn't the right time for your unexpected visit." Allison's arms began to tremble under the weight of the pie and gifts. "So, when exactly would be the right time to see my own family at Christmas?" Tyler shifted uncomfortably but remained silent. From inside, a chorus of voices began counting down for something. 10, 9, 8. "Just go, Allison, please." Margaret's voice held no warmth, no apology, only irritation at the inconvenience Allison had become. 7, 6, 5. The voices continued. Tyler finally spoke directly to Allison, his voice barely audible. "You should have called first, sis." 4, 3. Margaret seized the opportunity of Allison's stunned silence to push her foot away from the threshold. "Merry Christmas," she said mechanically, then closed the door firmly in Allison's face. 2, 1. From inside came cheers and applause, the celebration continuing without interruption as if the daughter of the house hadn't just been turned away like a stranger. Allison stood motionless on the porch, snowflakes accumulating on her hair and shoulders. The pie's warmth seeped through her gloves, a cruel reminder of the cozy family scene she'd imagined sharing it in. Behind the door, the music volume increased again. Through the window, shadows moved in what appeared to be dancing. Her fingers loosened their grip. The pie slid from her hands, landing with a dull thud in the snow at her feet. The handcrafted dish cracked, filling with white powder as steam rose from the ruined dessert. The bag of gifts followed, tumbling onto the porch. One package burst open, revealing the corner of the blue cashmere sweater she'd selected so carefully for her mother. Tears blurred her vision as she stumbled back down the steps. The Christmas lights that had seemed so welcoming minutes earlier now felt like a cruel decoration on a facade. This house, once her home, belonged to strangers now. Strangers wearing her mother's and brother's faces. The unveiling of deceit in her car, Allison sat with numb fingers gripping the steering wheel, unable to process what had just happened. Through the windshield, she watched the holiday scene continue inside the house, silhouettes moving past windows, occasional bursts of laughter escaping when someone opened the front door to admit late arrivals or welcome departing guests with hugs. No one retrieved the fallen packages from the porch. Perhaps they assumed the wind had blown over a decoration. The first sob caught Allison by surprise, bursting from her chest with such force that she doubled over the steering wheel. Then another followed, and another, until she was gasping for breath between violent cries that fogged the car windows and drowned out the last Christmas song playing softly on the radio. For 32 years, she'd been Allison Reed, daughter of Margaret, sister of Tyler. In an instant, that identity had been stripped away on the front porch of the very home where it had been forged. She was no longer family. She was an embarrassment, an inconvenience, a stranger. As tears subsided into hiccuping breaths, Allison fumbled for her phone, uncertain who she could possibly call in this moment of absolute desolation. Before she could decide, the screen lit up with an incoming call. Tyler's name flashed on the display. With shaking fingers, she accepted the call, pressing the phone to her ear without speaking. What could I possibly say? Ally? Tyler's voice came through, hushed and hurried. Are you still outside? Allison cleared her throat, willing strength into her voice. I'm in my car. Listen, I'm sorry about what happened. I didn't know you were actually coming today. Mom said you had canceled. Canceled? The word came out as a croak. I spoke to her earlier today. I told her I was on my way. Well, she told everyone you couldn't make it. She's been planning this dinner party for weeks. Important connections for her new business venture. New business venture? Her mother had been a hospital administrator for 20 years. What business venture? Allison asked. The boutique spa she's opening with her new partner, Richard's Investing. He's here tonight. None of this made sense. Margaret had never mentioned any Richard or any spa. Tyler, I've been sending mortgage money every month. Is Mom even still working at the hospital? A pause. Not since last year. Look, this isn't a great time to get into all this. I just wanted to tell you not to be upset about tonight. You know how Mom gets about her social standing lately. Having you show up unannounced just threw her off. Unannounced? Allison's voice rose. I've been planning this Christmas visit for months. I sent extra money specifically for holiday dinner. Another pause. Longer this time. When Tyler spoke again, his tone had shifted to something placating, the voice he used when trying to charm his way out of trouble. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is, Ally. Christmas Day is tomorrow. Maybe we can meet somewhere for coffee in the morning? Just you and me. Exchange gifts then? The casual dismissal in his voice broke something inside her. All those years of support, of caring, of prioritizing their needs above her own, reduced to a consolation coffee if it could be conveniently fit into his schedule. Fine, Allison said flatly. I understand. Great. You're the best, sis. Always understanding. Relief flooded his voice. I should get back in there before they notice I'm gone too long. Text me what hotel you're staying at and I'll call you tomorrow about meeting up. I understand, Allison repeated, unable to formulate any other response through the numbness spreading through her. Perfect. Love you. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Tyler, Allison whispered. She expected to hear the call disconnect. Instead, there was rustling, muffled sounds. Tyler had failed to properly end the call. His voice returned, no longer speaking to Allison but to someone in the house, his tone completely transformed from the conciliatory one he just used. Crisis averted, he said, followed by what sounded like laughter. She's going to some hotel. Totally bought the coffee plan. A female voice responded, too distant to make out the words. I know, right? Tyler continued. She still thinks helping with rent means she's automatically included in everything we do. Like we're obligated to have her around just because she sends money. Allison's entire body went cold as his words registered. Each syllable sliced through years of familial trust, revealing the ugly truth beneath. It's not like she can't afford it. A different voice chimed in, possibly her mother's. Have you seen her apartment in those Facebook photos? All that travel? She's doing fine without us. Exactly. Tyler agreed. Meanwhile, we're using her money for the things that actually matter to us. She's so desperate to be needed that she never even questions why we always need more. Laughter followed, multiple voices joining in. Remember when she missed last Christmas because of that flu? Her mother's voice asked. And she sent those ridiculous packages express delivery? The look on Kevin's face when I told him they were from my daughter, who thinks sending presents makes up for never visiting. Speaking of presents, Tyler added, you should see what she brought today. Standing there with a literal homemade pie like we're in some Hallmark movie. So pathetic. More laughter, growing fainter as he apparently walked away from wherever he'd stashed his phone. She's always been like that. Her mother's voice continued, barely audible now. Always wanting more emotional connection than normal people. Always asking how we're feeling, if we're okay. Wanting to talk for hours about nothing. Who has time for that? At least her money doesn't talk. Someone joked, followed by the clinking of glasses and more laughter before the voices became too distant to distinguish. Allison sat paralyzed, phone still pressed to her ear as the conversation continued without her, about her, revealing truths never meant for her to hear. The people she'd loved most in the world, the family she'd supported faithfully for years, saw her as nothing more than a convenient source of income. Worse, they mocked the very things about her that she'd thought made her a good daughter and sister. Her generosity, her desire for connection, her genuine care for their well-being. The call continued for several more minutes, the phone apparently abandoned in some room away from the main gathering. Occasional snippets of conversation drifted through, each one another dagger to her heart. The money for Christmas dinner went to Richard's daughter's wedding gift. Told her I needed a reliable car, bought the Audi instead. Country club membership was the best investment we could make for networking. Never questions any of it. Finally, a beep signaled the call had ended, either from Tyler retrieving his phone or the battery dying. Allison lowered her phone slowly, staring at the screen as if it might offer some explanation, some evidence that what she'd heard had been a cruel joke or a terrible misunderstanding. But there was no misunderstanding the contempt in their voices, no misinterpreting the calculated exploitation revealed in their casual conversation. For years, she'd been nothing but a distant ATM to them, valued only for financial support, while being mocked for seeking emotional connection in return. Through the fog of betrayal, one thought crystallized with surprising clarity: she needed documentation. Opening her banking app, Allison began taking screenshots of every transfer to their accounts, every extra payment, every financial gift she'd sent over the years. The amounts were staggering when viewed all at once. Enough for a down payment on her own house, enough for extensive international travel, enough to have transformed her own life in countless ways. Instead, it had funded country club memberships she'd never heard about, ski trips to Aspen that were never mentioned, a boutique spa business that was apparently common knowledge to everyone except her. As her fingers scrolled through years of transactions, memories surfaced alongside them. The promotion celebration she'd attended alone because they were too busy to visit Chicago. The hospitalization for appendicitis where either of them came to see her. The achievement awards and recognition dinners where other colleagues were surrounded by proud family members while Allison sat alone. All while the money flowed steadily from her account to theirs. The snow continued falling outside, covering her car in a thick white blanket as she sat inside, methodically documenting years of financial support juxtaposed against years of emotional neglect. With each screenshot, each saved email requesting, "Just a little extra this month," something shifted inside her. The paralyzing pain began hardening into something else entirely: resolve. Reclaiming her life, the Riverside Inn's neon vacancy sign glowed through the swirling snow, a beacon of temporary shelter. It wasn't the Christmas Eve Allison had imagined, checking into a roadside motel alone instead of sleeping in her childhood bedroom. But nothing about this night had gone as planned. "Just passing through?" the night clerk asked as he processed her credit card. "Something like that," Allison replied, unable to explain that she was suddenly homeless in her hometown, cast out by her own family. Room 118 smelled of industrial cleaner and staleness. Its beige walls and outdated floral bedspread were a far cry from the festive warmth Allison had anticipated for the holiday. She placed her overnight bag on the luggage rack and sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing her coat, still not quite believing the events of the past 2 hours. The clock on the nightstand read 10:28 p.m. In normal families, this would be a time of winding down Christmas Eve celebrations, Perhaps preparing for children to wake excited in the morning or enjoying final moments together with loved ones before the big day. In her family, if she could even call them that anymore, the party at her mother's house was likely still in full swing, her existence already forgotten, or worse, served up as an amusing anecdote for their glamorous guests. Sleep was impossible. Her mind replayed the rejection at the door, followed by the devastating phone conversation, analyzing each word for any trace of affection or regret. There was none, only calculation, mockery, and casual cruelty. Opening her laptop, Allison connected to the motel's spotty Wi-Fi and accessed her email. If the verbal evidence she'd overheard wasn't enough, surely there would be written confirmation of their deception. She started with Tyler, searching his name in her inbox. The results were illuminating. Scrolling through years of communication revealed a pattern so obvious she wondered how she'd missed it. Every contact initiated by Tyler followed a predictable cycle: casual check-in, update on some promising opportunity, subtle or direct mention of financial challenges, request for assistance, effusive gratitude upon receipt, then silence until the next need arose. 10 minutes into her search, Allison found something even more damning. An email Tyler had forwarded to her accidentally 2 years ago, apparently intended for their mother. She agreed to the extra $1,000 for the car repairs. That should cover the rest of the down payment on the boat. Maybe mention something about the transmission next month if we need the summer storage fees covered too. Allison remembered sending that $1,000, remembered the relief in Tyler's voice when he called to thank her, saying the repairs meant he could keep his job since he wouldn't miss shifts due to unreliable transportation. She'd felt good about helping, proud even. Meanwhile, they'd been laughing at her gullibility while spending her hard-earned money on luxury items. Her mother's emails followed similar patterns, though more subtle. She specialized in health scares and house emergencies, always downplaying their severity when requesting funds but dramatically emphasizing the crucial timing of Allison's assistance. One thread particularly stood out. Her desperate pleas for help with mortgage payments to avoid foreclosure coincided with social media posts, which Allison hadn't noticed at the time, showing her vacation in Sedona at a luxury spa resort. The mortgage payments? For 3 years, Allison had been transferring $800 monthly toward what she believed was saving her childhood home from financial distress. Had there even been a mortgage crisis? Or was that another fabrication? With growing dread, Allison searched her credit card statements. Next, authorized user additions she'd approved years ago for emergencies only showed consistent usage for restaurants, clothing stores, and entertainment venues. A separate card she'd provided for medication costs had been regularly maxed out at high-end department stores and electronics retailers. The more she searched, the more evidence materialized. What had begun as occasional familial support had evolved into systematic financial exploitation. By conservative estimates, Allison had given them over $80,000 in direct transfers alone over the past 5 years, not counting credit card charges, gifts, or other indirect support. The bathroom mirror reflected a stranger when Allison finally stood to splash cold water on her face. Red-rimmed eyes, hollow cheeks, hair disheveled from running her hands through it repeatedly in disbelief. This woman looked broken, betrayed, but something else flickered in her expression too, something steely and determined. At the desk, Allison opened a new document and began typing. No emotional language, no accusations, just facts, dates, amounts, stated purposes versus discovered actual uses, a complete accounting of financial support provided and the systematic deception surrounding it. By 3 a.m., she had created a comprehensive record of every dollar given, every lie told, every manipulation tactic employed. The document complete, Allison saved it, then opened her banking app again. The interface was familiar. The actions she was about to take were not. Her finger hovered over the screen, a lifetime of family loyalty battling with the undeniable evidence of betrayal. Family doesn't do this to each other, she whispered to the empty room. The first step was the automatic transfers, $800 monthly to Margaret Reed, $500 monthly to Tyler Reed. With a few taps, both were canceled, effective immediately. Next, the credit cards. Allison logged into each account, reporting the authorized user cards as compromised and requesting immediate cancellation. For the separate card in her name that her mother used for emergencies, she reported it lost and requested a replacement with a new number. Finally, the mortgage assistance. This would require a phone call in the morning, but Allison made a calendar appointment to contact the bank first thing. Each action brought a strange mixture of pain and liberation. These financial ties had been her primary connection to her family for years, the tangible expression of love and support she could provide from a distance. Cutting them felt like severing limbs. Yet, with each transaction cancelled, each exploitative access point closed, Allison's breathing grew steadier, her thinking clearer. By dawn, she had systematically dismantled the financial infrastructure that had defined her family relationships for the past 5 years. Her bank accounts were now solely hers. Her credit was protected. Her future earnings would serve her own needs and goals. The room's cheap drapes did little to block the Christmas morning sunrise. Golden light spilled across the table where her laptop displayed the completed documentation of financial abuse and her methodical response to it. Outside, distant church bells chimed, calling the faithful to Christmas services. Allison should have felt devastated. In many ways, she was. But rising alongside the grief was something unexpected, a profound sense of having reclaimed control over her own life. For years, she had poured resources into an insatiable void of need that was never really need at all, just greed disguised as family obligation. Picking up her phone, Allison composed a single email, addressed to both her mother and brother. Subject: termination. Financial support effective immediately. I have cancelled all automatic transfers, removed authorized users from my credit accounts, and will no longer be providing financial assistance of any kind. Documentation of past support totaling $83,459.07 over 5 years has been saved for potential legal purposes. Do not contact me regarding financial matters again. Allison. Her finger hovered over the send button as doubt crept in. Was I overreacting? Was I throwing away my only family over money? Then Tyler's mocking voice echoed in her memory. She still thinks helping with rent means she's automatically included. Her mother's dismissive tone. Always wanting more emotional connection than normal people. This wasn't about money. This was about respect, honesty, and genuine care. All things her financial support had apparently bought her none of. She pressed send. Then she packed her overnight bag, checked out of the motel, and pointed her car back toward Chicago, leaving behind the broken pieces of what she'd always thought was family love. The road to healing the interstate stretched before her, surprisingly empty on Christmas morning. Most people were home with their families, opening presents, preparing festive meals, creating memories. Allison gripped the steering wheel with determination, each mile putting distance between her and the shattered illusion of her family bonds. At the first rest stop across the Indiana border, she pulled over to make the calls that couldn't wait. The bank's customer service operated with a skeleton crew for the holiday, but after explaining her situation as a possible fraud case, Allison was transferred to their security department. So you've been sending regular payments labeled as mortgage assistance to this other party? The representative clarified. Yes, for 3 years, but I now have reason to believe there may never have been a mortgage issue at all. Allison's voice remained steady, professional, as if discussing someone else's situation. I understand. We're placing an immediate stop on any pending transactions to these accounts. Our fraud department will contact you after the holiday to discuss possible recourse options for misrepresented transactions. One by one, she methodically closed every financial pipeline that had flowed from her to them: credit card companies, payment apps, the investment account she'd established for Tyler's future business plans. Each representative expressed holiday sympathies while processing her requests without question. Financial self-protection, it seemed, was something they understood all too well, even on Christmas Day. The final call was to her landlord in Chicago, from whom she'd been subletting the garden apartment in her building to Tyler at a significant discount for the past 2 years. He had claimed to be between places temporarily while building his savings. Given what Allison now knew about ski trips to Aspen and luxury cars, this too had likely been a convenient fiction. I'll need to terminate the sublease agreement with my brother, Allison explained to Mr. Kaplan. I've just learned he's been misrepresenting his financial situation. That's unfortunate, the elderly landlord replied. Especially on Christmas. Family troubles are the worst kind. Yes, Allison agreed simply, unable to elaborate further without emotion threatening to break through. Back on the highway, her phone began its assault. First came the text messages, starting with confusion, quickly escalating to disbelief and anger. Tyler, what's going on? My card was just declined at the gas station. Ally, are you serious right now? On Christmas? Tyler, answer me. What did you do? Her mother's messages followed almost immediately. Mom, Allison, I tried to make a purchase and my card was declined. Fix this immediately. Mom, this is completely unacceptable behavior after everything we've done for you. Mom, if this is about last night, you're being childish and vindictive. Allison placed her phone in the passenger seat, screen down, and focused on the road ahead. Their messages deserved no response. The emails she'd sent explained everything they needed to know. By the time Allison stopped for lunch at a roadside diner, the only establishment open along the highway, her voicemail was full. Notifications of missed calls scrolled endlessly. Tyler, Mom, unknown numbers that were likely them calling from others' phones when she didn't answer their initial attempts. The diner's Christmas decorations seemed almost obscene in their cheerfulness. Twinkling lights and plastic poinsettias surrounding a small artificial tree with blinking colored bulbs. The handful of other patrons looked as out of place as Allison felt. Stranded travelers and solitary figures united only by their absence from traditional family gatherings. Merry Christmas, honey, the waitress said, setting down a turkey sandwich special with a small side of cranberry sauce. On the road to see family? Coming back, actually, Allison replied softly. The visit ended early. The waitress nodded with the wisdom of someone who had seen many holiday disappointments. Sometimes that's for the best. Allison checked her phone while picking at the sandwich. 23 missed calls, 38 text messages, 7 voicemails, and now emails beginning to arrive. The first was from Tyler. Subject line: You need to fix this right now. The message contained no greeting, just a series of demands. Whatever game you're playing needs to stop. I have bills due Monday. The party last night cost more than expected and I'm already overdrawn. Mom is hysterical. Her business partner is waiting for her portion of the investment, and now she can't access the money. You had no right to cut us off without warning. You're punishing us because you felt left out of one dinner. Grow up and turn the cards back on immediately. Her mother's email arrived minutes later, its tone fluctuating between righteous indignation and manipulative guilt. Mom, I don't know what kind of breakdown you're having, but this is beyond unacceptable. After everything I've sacrificed for you, the years of putting your needs first, this is how you repay maternal love? By trying to destroy Christmas, by embarrassing me in front of important business connections. Your brother is beside himself. He was counting on that money for essential expenses. I raised you better than this vindictive behavior. I expect the transfers restored and access reinstated by the time you read this, or don't bother calling yourself my daughter anymore. What sacrifices had she made for me? What needs of mine had ever come first? The revisionist history was almost as stunning as the original betrayal. The pattern continued throughout the afternoon. As Allison drove through Indiana, the messages evolved from angry demands to desperate pleas. Tyler, ally, please. My landlord is going to evict me if I don't pay today. I'm not joking. Mom, the spa location deposit is due tomorrow. If I lose it, I lose everything I've worked for. Tyler, I didn't mean what you heard. It was a stupid joke. Please call me. Mom, whatever you think you know, you've misunderstood. We need to talk. By early evening, the Chicago skyline appeared on the horizon. The tone shifted again. Now came threats. Mom, if you don't fix this immediately, I'll have no choice but to involve lawyers. Tyler, hope you realize this counts as financial abuse. Cutting people off without warning is illegal. Mom, I've contributed to those accounts too. You have no right to block my access. The legal threats were as empty as their earlier concern had been genuine. Allison had withdrawn only her own funds, cancelled only her own cards. Their attempted intimidation only confirmed the correctness of her actions. Allison pulled into her apartment building's parking lot. The final phase began, bargaining mixed with character assassination. Tyler, okay, you've made your point. Very dramatic. Now turn the cards back on and we can talk about a reasonable support plan going forward. Mom, I always knew you had emotional problems. This erratic behavior proves it. Let me help you get the therapy you clearly need. Tyler, don't tell anyone about this family disagreement. You'll just embarrass yourself. By the time Allison unlocked her apartment door, greeted only by the silent Christmas tree and the stale air of a home left unoccupied for days, she had 47 missed calls. The final voicemail, left by her mother, captured the essence of their entire relationship. Allison, this is your mother. I don't know what kind of point you're trying to make with this financial tantrum, but it ends now. We have always been there for you, always supported your choices, even when you abandoned your family to move to Chicago. All we've ever asked in return is minimal financial help during difficult times. If you've somehow convinced yourself we've taken advantage, that's your own insecurity talking. Call me back immediately so we can resolve this misunderstanding. And Allison, your brother and I expect compensation for the emotional distress you've caused today. This was supposed to be a special Christmas. Allison deleted the message, along with all the others, without responding. Setting her phone to Do Not Disturb, she placed it on the charger and walked to the kitchen to make tea. The apartment felt different somehow. Not emptier, as she'd feared, but cleaner, as if a long-festering infection had finally been lanced, painful in the process, but necessary for healing. On her refrigerator, save the date magnet for a colleague's spring wedding caught her attention. 6 months ago, Allison had automatically assumed she'd attend alone, as she did most events. Now, she wondered if she might invite someone, build new connections, create a found family to replace the biological one that had proven so hollow. By morning, her phone showed 61 missed calls. She left them all unanswered as the first day of her new life began. A new dawn. January arrived with bitter winds and heavy snow, mirroring the frozen landscape of Allison's emotional state. The holidays passed in a blur of solitude and paperwork, fraud reports filed with credit agencies, financial records organized for potential legal action, new accounts created with enhanced security features. The external work of separating her finances completely from her family occupied her hands while her heart remained numb, protected by shock from the full impact of what had happened. The calls eventually stopped around New Year's Day, replaced by occasional emails that grew less frequent as weeks passed with no response. Her mother's final message came in mid-January, its subject line intended to wound. Your father always said you'd abandon us too. Allison deleted it unread. At Lisa's insistence, Allison scheduled an appointment with a therapist. Something's different about you, her boss had observed after the Thornton presentation, which Allison delivered flawlessly despite her internal turmoil. Whatever happened over Christmas has changed you. Dr. Kaur's office became a sanctuary where Allison could finally verbalize the magnitude of the betrayal without fear of judgment. In their first session, she struggled to even name what had happened. My family, they didn't want me anymore, was all she could manage before tears overwhelmed her. By their third meeting, she could articulate more clearly. They used me for money while mocking my desire for connection. They saw my generosity as weakness to exploit, not love to reciprocate. What you're describing is financial abuse, Dr. Kaur said gently, combined with profound emotional manipulation. Your grief is completely appropriate. Grief. That word unlocked something. Allison wasn't just angry or hurt. She was grieving the death of relationships she'd believed in all her life. The mother she thought had loved her had never existed. The brother she'd protected and supported had been playing a role. The family she'd sacrificed for was a fiction she'd created and maintained through willful blindness. February brought small victories. Allison opened a separate savings account, redirecting the funds previously sent to her family toward her own future. By month's end, she had accumulated enough for a weekend getaway, her first truly selfish expenditure in years. 2 days at a lakeside cabin with novels, hiking trails, and absolute solitude gave her space to breathe, to imagine a life defined by her own choices rather than others' needs. Identity is the next challenge, Dr. Kaur suggested upon her return. Who is Allison Reed when she's not primarily a daughter or sister, when she's not defined by caretaking or financial support? That's what you get to discover now. The question haunted her through March's thaw. Without family obligations draining her energy and resources, unexpected space opened in her life. She accepted dinner invitations from colleagues she'd previously been too busy to get to know. She joined a weekend photography class, rekindling an interest abandoned years ago when family emergencies consistently interrupted her hobbies. One evening in early spring, her downstairs neighbor Clara invited her for coffee. An elderly widow whose children lived overseas, Clara had always greeted Allison warmly in passing, but they never moved beyond pleasant small talk. "I noticed you stopped rushing out of town on holidays," she observed, serving homemade lemon cake alongside strong coffee. "Family troubles?" Something about Clara's direct kindness broke through Allison's practiced deflections. "I discovered my family was using me for money while actively excluding me from their lives." Instead of the awkward sympathy Allison had come to expect, Clara nodded matter-of-factly. "My son in Australia did something similar. Convinced me to sell my summer cottage to fund his business, which turned out to be a yacht." Her frankness startled a laugh from Allison. "What did you do?" "Cut him off completely for 2 years. When he finally came back apologizing, I had conditions, real accountability, regular contact that wasn't about money. 5 years later, we're rebuilding something healthier." Clara poured more coffee. "Not saying that's your path, mind you. Some relationships can't and shouldn't be salvaged." That conversation marked a turning point. Clara introduced Allison to her weekly card group, 4 women and 2 men in their 60s and 70s who welcomed her without question. They taught her canasta, shared stories of their own family complications, and never probed when topics became uncomfortable. With them, Allison experienced community without obligation, affection without exploitation. By summer, her professional life blossomed alongside these new personal connections. The energy previously consumed by family drama now fueled creative projects. At work, Lisa promoted her to lead their agency's newest high-profile account. Her savings grew steadily. Allison began researching first-time home buyer programs, imagining routes of her own choosing. When Clara's building elevator broke in July, Allison naturally helped organize a schedule of neighbors to assist with groceries and errands. Her contribution evolved into Sunday dinners in Clara's apartment. Cooking skills once used to nurture her ungrateful family now served to build genuine friendships. Other neighbors joined occasionally, creating an impromptu chosen family that expanded with each gathering. "You're good at creating connection," Clara observed one evening as they washed dishes together. "That was never the problem. The problem was the people you were connecting with didn't deserve it." As Thanksgiving approached, the holiday anxiety Allison anticipated felt surprisingly distant. When Clara asked about her plans, Allison hesitated only briefly before suggesting they host dinner together for their growing circle of friends. The meal they created bore no resemblance to traditional family gatherings of her past. No tension, no calculated exchanges, no keeping score, just genuine appreciation and the comfortable silence of people who enjoy each other's company. Christmas loomed larger in Allison's emotional landscape. Dr. Kaur suggested confronting it directly rather than pretending the anniversary of her family's severance didn't matter. "What would a healing Christmas look like for you?" she asked in their early December session. The answer came with unexpected clarity. Rather than seeking replacement family experiences, Allison wanted to transform the holiday's meaning entirely. She signed up to volunteer at a community center serving Christmas dinner to isolated seniors and struggling families. The center director mentioned they lacked gifts for several seniors on their list. "I could help with that," Allison offered. thinking of the fulfillment she'd once found in selecting perfect presents for people who had secretly mocked her efforts. Shopping for strangers who would genuinely appreciate the thought behind each gift brought unexpected joy. She took care, learning the seniors' histories from center staff, selecting items that acknowledged their individuality rather than just their needs. A vintage jazz record from Mr. Washington, who had played saxophone in clubs across Chicago in his youth. A cashmere scarf in her favorite shade of purple from Mrs. Diaz, who had taught art before arthritis claimed her dexterity. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after standing shocked and rejected on her mother's porch, Allison helped decorate the community center. No elaborate display like her mother's precisely arranged decor, just cheerful paper chains made by children and mismatched ornaments donated over years. The authenticity felt more beautiful than any polished presentation. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. Before heading to the center, Allison logged into her banking app and made an anonymous donation to a family support nonprofit, deliberately choosing one that specialized in helping people establish financial independence from toxic relationships. The amount matched exactly what she would have sent her mother and brother in holiday extras the previous year. The community center buzzed with activity when Allison arrived. Volunteers in Santa hats served food, distributed gifts, and simply sat talking with attendees who had no one else to spend the day with. Allison found herself assigned to Mrs. Chen's table, a 92-year-old former mathematics professor whose sharp wit and observation skills reminded her of Clara. "First time volunteering?" she asked between bites of turkey. "Yes, first Christmas since I lost my family." Mrs. Chen studied her with keen eyes. "Lost as in died, or lost as in discovered they weren't worth keeping?" "The second one," Allison admitted, surprised by her own candor. Mrs. Chen nodded. "Been there. Married 47 years to a man who had a second family in Detroit. Found out when he died and they showed up at the funeral." She patted Allison's hand. "You'll survive. Might even like the person you become after." Boundaries and belonging. In April, almost 16 months after the Christmas rejection, Allison was walking through downtown Chicago when she glimpsed a familiar face. Tyler stood examining a shop window, looking older somehow, less polished than the last time Allison had seen him. When he turned and saw her, his expression cycled rapidly through shock, calculation, and an attempt at casual warmth. "Ally! Wow! What are the odds?" He stepped toward her, arms outstretched as if for a hug. Allison maintained her distance, nodding politely. "Tyler, I didn't know you were in Chicago. Just for a conference." His eyes assessed her, undoubtedly noting her new haircut, the tailored coat, the general aura of well-being she'd been told she now projected. "You look good. Really good." "Thank you. I am good." The simple truth of that statement surprised her. An awkward silence followed. He shuffled his feet, clearly uncomfortable with Allison's lack of questions about his life or her mother. "Listen," he finally began. "About what happened. It's in the past," Allison interrupted calmly. "I've moved forward." His expression flickered between relief and disappointment. Relief at being spared accountability, disappointment at not getting whatever reaction he'd anticipated. "Mom asks about you sometimes," he offered, an obvious lie. "I hope you're both well." The words contained no rancor, just polite distance. "We've been struggling, actually. The spa business failed. Mom had to sell the house." His eyes watched for any sign of sympathy or guilt. "We've had to start over almost from scratch." 5 years ago, Allison would have immediately offered help. 2 years ago, she would have felt vindicated by their struggles. Today, she felt nothing but peaceful detachment. "Life has challenges for everyone," she replied simply. "I should get going. I have dinner plans." His expression hardened slightly. "Still holding a grudge then, after all this time?" Allison smiled, genuinely amused by his misinterpretation. "No grudge, Tyler. No anger, no resentment, just boundaries. I wish you the best, sincerely, but my life doesn't include you anymore." As Allison walked away, he called after her. "Family is supposed to be forever, Ally." She turned briefly. True family is. What we had wasn't family. It was exploitation dressed up as obligation. Her voice remained gentle, the realization long since processed and accepted. Goodbye, Tyler. That evening, Allison shared the encounter with her dinner companions, Clara, 2 neighbors from their Sunday group, and colleagues from work who had become genuine friends. Their supportive responses contained no pressure, no expectations, no implicit demands, just authentic care. As plates were cleared and dessert arrived, Allison looked around the table at these people who had entered her life only after she'd cleared away the debris of false family ties. None of them were perfect. All had flaws and complications. But each connection was built on mutual respect rather than obligation, on choice rather than blood, on appreciation rather than exploitation. Everything okay? Clara asked, noticing Allison's momentary introspection. Better than okay, Allison replied truthfully. I was just thinking about how sometimes losing what you thought was essential opens the door to finding what actually is.